Good morning and welcome to the Fundamentals of English Language and Literature Teaching, which is paper number 10 of semester 3, MA English Part 2. In this video, we are going to talk about the audiolingual method under approaches and methods. The audiolingual method is developed in America, whereas the grammar translation method and direct methods are developed in Europe. It is based on the structural linguistics and the behavioral psychologists. Structuralists believe that language is a system of systems, while behaviorists believe a set of habits and bit by bit teaching, where stimulus gives rise to the response. The audiolingual method was developed in America, and the term audiolingualism was first used by Professor Nelson Brooks in 1964. Its origin dates back to the time of Second World War. This method emerged from the language teaching programs devised in America during the World War II. As it was the program specifically meant for training army personnel, it is also referred to as the army method. This method stringently aimed at gaining ability to communicate orally in everyday life. The approach developed by the linguists at Michigan University forms the basis of audiolingual method. The approach developed by Michigan and other universities became known variously as the oral approach, the oral approach, or the structural approach. It advocated oral training first and then pronunciation training, followed by the speaking, reading, as well as writing. Audiolingual method can be called as the combination of the oral approach, structural approach, contrastive analysis, and behaviorist psychology. The audiolingual method is the outcome of the stringent efforts of the linguists of Michigan University. They devised a method that could be used to learn a foreign language by listening. The theory of audiolingual method relies on the belief that, number one, the human being is an organism capable of wide repertoire of behavior. These behaviors depend on stimulus, response, and reinforcement. Number two, analogy provides better foundation for language learning than analysis. Analogy involves the process of generalization and discrimination. Number three, the theory of nonverbal behavior of learning can also be applied to the verbal behavior of language learning. The theory of audiolingual method emphasizes the shaping of human beings to make them good language learners. It also believes in the process of habit formation and thus advocates the teaching of the English in the linguistic and cultural context rather than with the help of providing mother tongue equivalents. The basic principles of audiolingual method is the belief that analogy is better than analysis, and language learning is habit formation. The primacy of speech is held as the most important theoretical assumption in this method. The principles of audiolingual method can be listed that the language is primarily spoken and then written, and language skills need to be taught independently. The meanings that the words of a language have for the native speaker can be learned only in a linguistic and cultural context. Learning a foreign language is basically the process of habit formation. Negative and positive reinforcement affect the habit formation naturally. Language skills are learned more effectively if the items to be learned in target language are presented in spoken form before they are seen in the written form. Patterns and drills are the fundamental requirements of habit formation. Using target language is the best way to learn it, but mother tongue need not be discarded as a rule. This became the basis for the program of the foreign language teaching to the American Armed Forces in the Second World War, and thereafter is applied to all the schools and colleges across the world to learn the second language. Audiolingual method emphasizes listening and speaking. Its name itself indicates to the fact that this method believes in listening as the most important skill to learn speaking. However, it does not discard the other skills altogether. They are also paid the due attention in the classrooms. The practices in general of the audiolingual class include a lot of attention to oral aspect, both listening as well as speaking. Due attention to reading and writing through focus, though the focus is on speech. Using dialogues to present the language items and to provide opportunities of practice and mimic memorization to the learners. Dialogues were the main feature of the audiolingual system, and they were chief means of presenting language items. They also provided learners an opportunity to practice, mimic, and memorize the bits of language. Using language laboratory, tape recorders, or audiovisual aids would be the model for learning the language. Avoiding the use of mother tongue as much as possible, like the direct method, the audiolingual method also tried to avoid the use of mother tongue, though perhaps not so rigidly. The entire emphasis is on the correct pronunciation, stress, rhythm, and intonation. A lot of emphasis on accuracy and severe criticism on the mistakes has been observed. Selection of certain key structures from the dialogue to be used as the basis of pattern drills of different kinds. The central role of the teacher and the rigorous drills of the selected structures to make them sound neutral and natural. In audiolingualism, as in the situational language teaching, the teacher's role is central and active. It is a teacher dominated method, and the teacher models the target language, controls the direction and pace of learning, and monitors and corrects the learner's performance. So, naturally, the emphasis which is given to pronunciation and spoken aspects will have the intensive language learning programs with small classrooms, native teachers, long hours of intensive coaching, drills of the language lessons, 15 to 30 days program for 8 to 10 hours in a day. Oral proficiency is much emphasized. Oral proficiency, like the natives, has been observed, and with an extensive use of language laboratories. As a result of which, after the war was over, the teachers implemented the same methods in schools and colleges across the world. Excessive use of magnetic tapes, language laboratories, interactive methods, and so on was observed in the audiolingual method. Speaking and listening skills are emphasized with long sittings and appropriate or accurate language learning, emphasizing the native like pronunciation and expressions in the language. Audiolingual method was at the zenith of popularity in the 1960s. It was thought to be the best method because it did not emerge as a reaction to any of the methods, as the direct method was the outcome of the reaction of the grammar translation method. As it was a method prepared by the linguist, it has many useful propositions. They are regarded as the strengths of this method, which can be listed as follows. It is based on the natural order of the skills of learning a language, of listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and practices the same order in the classrooms as well. The audiolingual method showed an easy way to learn languages without burdening the intellect with problem solving, as in the grammar translation method. In a way, it democratized the learning of the foreign languages. Using language laboratory and other teaching aids is always useful to understand the actual pronunciation, and imitation of these leads to correct pronunciation and other features of speech. It is based on the theory of learning advocated by the behaviorist school of psychology. Accuracy is the soul of language, and audiolingual method attempts to teach accurate pronunciation with the help of model drills. It believes in heavy drills and a lot of practice, which helps to build the memory to make the patterns automatic and develop a native-like speaking capabilities. However, the audiolingual method though it was popular in 1960s, it was used for teaching English as a foreign language as well as a second language. It was the best method for teaching English to non-native speakers of English. No other method till date has proved to be so useful and is built about concrete theoretical foundation. Still, the direct method proved to be a failure because of its antithesis of the grammar translation method, and everything that grammar translation method proposed were reversed in it. Whereas in audiolingual method, It was a systematically derived way of language teaching, which made it authentic method of the contemporary times. But it was also criticized on account of its theoretical foundations on one hand and failure to gain the practical results on the other hand. Some of the major disadvantages of the audiolingual method can be listed as following. The audiolingual method is based on Skinner's theory, which is severely criticized by the later famous American linguist Noam Chomsky. Along with behaviorism, structuralism also forms the theoretical base of audiolingual method, which Chomsky rejected altogether, thereby proposing a new theory of innatism. Chomsky states that language is not a habit formation. Ordinary linguistic behavior characteristically involves innovation, formation of new sentences, and patterns in accordance with the rules of great abstractness and intricacy. The principle of imitation and repetition to master the structures is also challenged. Chomsky stated that sentences are not learned by imitation and repetition, but they are generated from the learner's underlying competence. It is an expensive method because it demands a lot of audiovisual aids and native speakers of teaching English. In second language countries, this method can hardly be used. It is very difficult to fetch English teachers from English speaking countries. Language laboratory is very important in these types of classes. There are hardly a few language laboratories in the second language countries like India, and so this becomes very difficult to implement. This method demands a lot of hard work by the teachers in the class as well as in the preparation and selection of the material. Writing and reading skills are the integral parts of the language. In fact, in most of the parts of the rural areas, only written English is used. Audiolingual method neglects writing skill altogether. And so, communicative competence is very difficult to develop. Though it is got the advantage of short term, less language, not entire or the whole language is taught, in a limited span, pronunciation is emphasized, still, a complete communicative competence is not developed. And so, audiolingualism thinks that language learning and other learning are similar processes. It believes in stimulus response theory and attributes a great importance to the reinforcement in the process of language learning. It undertakes rigorous drillings for automatic patterning and focuses on the spoken aspect at large. Writing is thought to be secondary and is neglected in the early stages of the language learning. The use of the graded structures for classroom and classwork for exercises forms the majority of its syllabus. Audiolingualism primarily believes in teaching language itself rather than teaching about the language. Audiolingualism seemed to have established itself as the most useful method of language teaching, but the revolutionary theories proposed by Noam Chomsky gave a majority setback to audiolingualism, and it was superseded by the theories of Noam Chomsky, and the new ways of language learning were taught by the world. Audiolingual method, in spite of severe criticism, finds its place in many modern language teaching innovations. Situational language teaching, for instance, shows many similarities with the audiolingualism. And hence, in spite of all its criticism, still audiolingual method has been successful even in the modern day. Thank you very much for being a part of this presentation, and bye for now.